Hello and welcome to the Scoutcast ahead of Gameweek 12 as FPL mistakes take centre stage. Are we about to make more blunders or have we learned some valuable lessons? My name is Joe.
My name is Holly.
And my name's Lee.
Welcome everyone in what may be a soul-searching episode for us, but more of that later. Holly, what is coming up on the show?
Well, we'll be looking back on a week of extreme highs and bench woes. Then we'll discuss the key issues you, the community, want to chat to us about. There's some soul searching as we reveal our key mistakes this season and, importantly, how we're going to try and learn from them. There's a differential to consider, clean sheets to look at, and crucially, our plans and captaincy for Game Week 12.
Brilliant, excellent. Looks exciting. And I know for myself, and I suspect for other people as well, some big decisions to be made in the transfer market ahead of Game Week 12. Lots of fixture swings, lots of players we don't own. I want everyone. I want about 300 people in my team, but I can only have 15 and I can only field 11 each week. So let's have a quick look back at Game Week 11. Lee, you're top of the pile. It's worked out very nicely this week where I've actually bottom. Lee, you go first. You've got 76 points. What happened this week? What were your good moves?
Very good, yeah. And right on cue, there is a ton of fireworks going off
in
my next door neighbour's garden. So
I thought it was heralding your amazing 76 points.
It's almost like you planned it, Joe. It's absolutely perfect timing. I'm hoping they're going to die down and you can hear me okay. 76 points. Very happy. Yeah, really happy. Across the team had good performances. Obviously, John Lundstram, we're going to talk about him a bit later on. What an absolute legend. I had Soyuncu as well, but on my bench, which was a bit disappointing, but I guess that's similar to quite a lot of people this game week. I had Madison in midfield, who got me was it the 8 or the 9? It was the 9 points in, so pretty happy with that. My transfer, these fireworks are crazy, by the way, absolutely insane. So I had Rico as well. I transferred out Otamendi for Rico this game week, so that was the transfer that paid off. I was very happy with that. I cannot seem to nail a captaincy. I don't know what it is about this season and nailing the captaincy, but I think I've got something like 2 out of 11 game weeks. And again, this game week was no different. I had Sterling. I thought Pep's bound to play Mendy and all this talk about Mendy going wide, so Sterling gets in more dangerous positions. So when I saw that team sheet come out and I saw Angelino in there, I thought, that's not going to be good from a Sterling captaincy. But nevertheless, Mane, Abraham, Trent AlexanderArnold, all good. So, 76 points. Pretty happy.
Really good week. A good week. Holly, you're up next. Not 76, 69 points. So, pretty similar. A very good week. Tell us about your highs and lows from Game Week 11.
Yeah, well, I've been a bit absent in the last few weeks, but I've decided to come back having had a decent FPL week. It was another captaincy fail, but I was actually considering Raheem Sterling as triple captain. So the fact that he blanked, but I didn't triple captain him, felt like a bit of a win in the end. So I've not dwelled on that too much. But as Lee said, I'm in the same boat where I've had a lot of captaincy fails this season. My transfer in Vardy paid off, so I'm really pleased to have him in my side now. And having made the move from Salah to Mane a few weeks ago, I've managed to reap the benefits of that again too.
Yeah.
It was one of those weeks where it started off badly and gradually got better at the end of that Liverpool game, but brought me plenty of points. Yeah. And then Tammy Abraham delivered, Vardy delivered, and things are looking good. So hopefully I can get a bit of momentum going from here.
Okay, well, I'm on 65 points. So, pretty good game week. So I thought on Saturday. I moved up to top 50k. Very, very happy. And then Leicester came along and I didn't have any of them. So I'm just going to put Lee's team up briefly, just to remind everyone that you've got Soyuncu on the bench there. And now I'm going to put my team up. And there he is again on the bench as well. So same story there for Lee. Quite good as Lee. Quite a good game week, but then Soyuncu on the bench. Lundstram in the side, very happy with that. I was always going to play Otamendi. I didn't think Otamendi would play, or if he did, I was happy for him to play and get me a clean sheet, possibly. But I didn't expect the 1 point. So it was really Lundstram v Soyuncu for me, and because I've got Henderson. So that Lundstram double up has been doing me proud.
Nice.
The previous week, I went for Jimenez and Dendoncker. I cleared out my Norwich assets, moved on in my Wolves assets, so I'm quite pleased with that. That's reaped some rewards finally. I got Connolly in this week, and I'm going to come to it later. I got Connolly in for King, and that was a mistake, I think, and it's a mistake I will talk about a bit later. But not because King scored and Connolly didn't, but I think for more strategic, long-term reasons. I didn't approach it like a chess player, put it that way, but more of that.
Talk us through your feelings when Otamendi come on for the 1 pointer, because Twitter went absolutely crazy when that happened. There was so many Lundstrams and Soyunjus.
I know. I didn't.
Nightmare.
Obviously, I didn't mind at that stage because Leicester hadn't played yet, so I didn't know I was going to. I didn't know, so I genuinely thought that. The old floor and ceiling. I thought the ceiling of Sionju was going to be about 6 points. So I've got Rico on my bench as well for 6 points. So I just thought, what the hell, another one. And then when Sionju scored, I thought, oh god. But then I knew that the choice was between him and Lundstram. So I couldn't ultimately be sad about that. And I don't mind. I mind not owning a player who does well. It's not satisfactory to have them on the bench, but it's not as bad, I don't think, because they're there. And because you think about the decisions you've got, they're within your 15. But I haven't made any decisions there. So if say I'd have captained Abraham, who was my vice captain, and if I'd have played Sionju instead of Otamendi, perfectly reasonable decisions that I could have got to, I would have had a monster score.
Absolutely.
But I didn't. So, woulda, shoulda, coulda. But at least, I had the potential for a good score within that 15. It wasn't like, a distant, fantasy, sci-fi dream of mine to have all of these players. But let's move...
The 15's looking good there for long term, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not bad. I'm going to come to it later. The Connolly thing, I think I made a boo-boo there. But let's move on to rough with the smooth. Lots of people had a rough week. Sionju or Lundstram on the bench, as we discussed. We're among them. Lots had a great week with them coming off the bench. I want to play a special mention to Sheffield United fan Tomo, who I've mentioned before. He was the guy that originally didn't believe in Lundstram. Now he believes in Lundstram. And he's so much...
He does now.
And because he's a Sheffield United fan.
Lord Lundstram.
But he believes in Lundstram, and he's also gone one step further as a Sheffield United fan. He played Lundstram, who supplied the goals, and he also got in and played Mousset as well. So Mousset up there.
Ooh, nice.
So he's got the guy who gets the goals, he's got the guy who gets the assists, and it's a great move. Very good. Another smooth week in particular caught my eye. It's someone called Sam Bonfield. Is that
oh God!
Is that all right, Lee?
Why have you got to talk about that?
This is because the jam involved with her move was particularly smooth, with Kane developing a surprise illness, which meant that Sionju arriving like a Shrek aristocrat he is off the bench. Lee, take us through Sam's very smooth game week there.
No,
all right.
I don't want to. No. So it was. I've had it for 10 years, Joe. So it's like she's the jammiest FPL player ever. I think, and the guys that follow us on our channel will know that there was one particular incident last season where Sam, on a hunch, bought in Lucas Torreira the game week that he did a bicycle kick. I mean, that's the only thing Lucas Torreira has ever done, and he got some points. She's just, some of the decisions she makes are incredible. But nevertheless, this game week, played Kane. Soyunju, I think, was maybe first or second sub. Anyway, she benched him. So you've got Kane there, he is a Spurs stalwart, come what may. Unless his leg's hanging off, he will play. So when there were some reports of him being a little bit ill, I thought, he'll shake that off, he'll play. No, not in the travelling squad. And of course, Soyunju comes off the bench. So it was interesting to see Sam's reaction, actually, when she heard the news that Kane wasn't in the squad, because she was like, oh, we really need him for today. I'm really disappointed. I said, no, you're not. Come off it. You're delighted that Soyunju is coming off your bench. So there was this kind of... she was kind of a little bit disappointed that Kane wasn't in the starting 11 for Spurs, but secretly she was delighted that Soyunju was coming off the bench.
Yeah, those 14 points tend to make up for. Anyway, I mean, Spurs don't need Kane anymore. Spurs need something else. They need a whole bunch of new players.
They need a whole new squad.
It's gone beyond needing Kane. It's gone beyond that. So perhaps they need a key player that we're going to talk about now. Yeah, Lee, who is the key player that we've had some community questions on this week?
Well, I think there's only one player that we can talk about on the back of that game week, and that's Mr. Lundstram, Lord Lundstram, as Holly referred to him quite rightly earlier on. So Skektex is saying, Rico and Lundstram, should we just play him every week? LeBluff is saying, is Lundstram now a worthy starter, particularly in this tough away game, starting at Tottenham this week? So there's been a lot of community talk, both on the Fantasy Football Scout website and on Twitter, about whether these guys now, we should just be starting them. We shouldn't be benching them anymore. And I have to say, I 100% agree. I had a straight choice as to whether I was going to put Lundstram in my team at the weekend, or I think Pukki. I had a straight choice between those two. And to be honest with you, given Pukki's form and given what Lundstram's been doing, it was a no-brainer. I just went completely for Lundstram. There was even an ounce of me that was thinking, I'm going to bench this guy. He's been phenomenal, isn't he? He's been phenomenal. It's almost like having a bit of a cheat code in FPL this year. He clearly is not a 4.0 defender. He's clearly more like, I think if we could go back to game week 1, and whoever it is in FPL Towers could have repriced this guy, we probably would be talking, I don't know, what, a 6.5 million midfielder, probably.
Yeah.
So
it's not even the pricing though, is it? It's the fact that the guy's never played in defence in his life. It's like saying, Jamie Vardy, great defender. Is he?
No, I mean, he's not just, we've seen in previous seasons, you can have a 4.0 defender that plays as a central defensive midfielder, maybe, and you say that's out of position. This guy's their creative number 7. So I think if you haven't got him, it's not too late. I wouldn't say if you're an FPL manager and he's 4.6, 4.7, whatever he is now, don't think I've missed the boat.
4.8 now.
4.8. Okay, so don't think, if you haven't got him, don't think I've missed the boat. He's not worth it. He absolutely still is worth it, in my opinion. I had him in game week 5 when I wildcarded, and he was, crazy as this sounds, he was a cornerstone of my wildcard. He was a really big decision point as to whether I was going to wildcard that week, was to get John Lundstram. So have you got him, Holly? Have you got Lundstram?
Yeah, I've had him since game week 1, so I've managed to reap quite a lot of points from him. I think I missed his first big haul, but since then I've managed to field him when he's got the big points. And I was setting up my bus team for game week 12, and I saw the Spurs away and thought, do I want him? Do I bench him? Especially because we've got quite a few defensive options. But I'd seen a tweet from Big Man Bakar, who I think is one of the Scout members area kings, and these stats for Lundstram: best in his team for shots in the box and big chances created, second for pass completion, big chances and expected goals, third for recoveries, blocks, interceptions, penalty area touches, expected assists and goal involvement. So
crazy.
Basically bossing all of the stats. Clean sheets, Sheffield United have had 5 this season, only Manchester City have managed to match that. And the fact that he's in the mix for goals and assists in every single game. And Spurs away isn't actually a tough fixture when you look at how Spurs have been performing this season. Should be able to hear me from the other room.
She can't hear you, it's all right, you're okay.
Can you imagine that door opening and Holly, what you're saying?
Where is Lundstram in the pecking order for you now? Is he your 5th defender, 4th, 3rd even?
Second.
Second, yeah. Crazy.
Well, to be honest, you could probably think of him as your first defender because he's got more points than any other defender. It's between him and TAA, I'd say, for my top defender.
This is amazing for John Lundstram. Did you see actually this week he's been on Twitter saying that more people are talking about him in terms of fantasy football than real football, and that he's
I think there was something on 5 Live, wasn't there, with Misha Richards that was interviewing him, and he's going to be one of those players that goes down in fantasy folklore in seasons to come.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really like him, and I'll absolutely be playing him away at Spurs this weekend. Like I say, if you haven't got him already, don't think it's too late. You need to get on him. I think, he probably is 2nd or 3rd defender for me now. If I think about the rest of my back line, Rico is probably my 5th defender, but even he, I think, is good value nowadays. Trent is still clearly first. I cannot believe, and maybe we'll talk a bit about Man City and Liverpool assets a bit later on, but it's phenomenal that Trent hasn't got more points than he's got. I mean, in terms of how he attacks, points from assists, goals, crosses into the box, everything. So he probably should have more points than he has, just looking at the eye test and underlying stats. But after that, I had Otamendi up until a little while ago, but even then I wouldn't necessarily class him as my 2nd defender. Lundstram is absolutely right up there, and I can't see a reason not to have him right now in FPL.
Lee, do you know how many more points Lundstram's got compared to TAA?
No, go on, tell me.
Have a guess.
I would say, given that you've got a massive smile on your face, Holly, and you know that I'm a Liverpool fan, they've probably got to be 20 points.
Yeah, you're close. 18.
Is it 18 points? Yeah. Absolutely crazy. Well, if Adrian hadn't gifted a few goals earlier in the season, Trent might have a few more clean sheets. So I'll back Trent there, but there's no getting past it. Lundstram is a great option.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Holly, I'm another who got him in game week 1, and I'm gonna mention the work that Neil and David do behind the scenes at Fantasy Football Scout here, because back in July they started mapping out the minutes of certain players, and this name kept coming up, John Lundstram. They kept saying, this guy is listed as a 4 million defender. He doesn't play in defence, and somehow he's starting every game, and he just kept starting, kept being an attacking midfielder. And just seemed so I've just followed their advice, got him in, and so and I haven't really looked back. So it's like you were saying, and about where does he stand? He's no longer the fifth midfielder. I think most of us, I got him in as a fifth midfielder. Gradually he's moved up that pecking order, and I see him now. I mean, he's not new in terms of a player being undervalued and performing well. Obviously we had Wan-Bissaka last season, but Wan-Bissaka, we're going to talk about lessons learned a bit later. One of the lessons that Wan-Bissaka taught me really was he is viable to play, and he should be first bench above an attacker, so above a fifth midfielder, above a third striker. And those guys have been moved back. The likes of Dendoncker or Connolly, they've been moved back a bit, and Lundstram is now first sub, or he's in the team for me, depending on the setup I've got. So if you've got a 3-4-3 and he's he's got the fourth best fixture, then put him first sub, and that's where he is now. And so I'm as you said, Lee, he's a 5-6 million midfielder, really, maybe a 7 million, 8 million even midfielder. He's not a defender. He's not a 4 million defender, but somehow FPL have made him a 4 million defender. It's a gift. It's a gift. It's a cheat code. I've written in my notes here, he's Joe Allen in sheep's clothing, and that's
careful now.
as in, and I say that in that I'm not getting too carried away. He's got number 7 on his back, but he ain't no David Beckham. But what he is a player like Joe Allen that plays in central midfield, that can get forwards. He plays in a slightly more attacking role. The team he plays for is not one of the most attacking teams, so he is what he is. He's we'll take your picks, 5, 6, 7, 8 million midfielder currently on current form. Somehow he's cheap. Anyway, I would go as far
to say, Joe, that so the likes of him and Rico and Connolly, and to maybe a lesser extent Dendoncker, if we just broaden it out a little bit, these guys are offering so much value that they've fundamentally changed the way that I've played FPL this season. Yeah. Because every other season, my third substitute spot on my bench is a burner spot. It's a 4.0 defender. It's a 4.5 midfielder that never plays. Sometimes I'll transfer somebody in that's gone out on loan just because I never want that spot. And I just want super, super cheap because I need those funds elsewhere. But the likes of Lundstram come into the fore, the likes of Rico, and to a lesser extent, like I say, Connolly, Dendoncker, these guys. I think the whole concept of a burner spot is gone this season. I think you can have a 15 and have spots 2 and 3 on your bench as Lundstram, as Rico, as Connolly, and these guys can happily come in and they're delivering points crucially, right? Not just the 2 points that we're expecting.
Every season has this sort of shift, and it's up to us as FPL managers to predict how the pricing and the ownership and the form and the fixtures are going, and each season it changes. And so when Leicester won the Premier League, Mahrez was dirt cheap but amazing. Yeah, Vardy was pretty cheap but amazing. And there was value all over their defence as well. So you've got that value again in the Leicester defence. Then you've got, as you said, Lundstram and Rico. So I'm looking at my team now, and I've got Otamendi still, so null and void. But all my other 4 defenders, including Lundstram, including Rico, including Sionju, I just want to play every week, especially looking at the fixtures.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking this is I'm starting to talk myself out of the mistake I made with Connolly, but I actually want to play 4 defenders at the moment, and I never usually want to play 4 defenders, but Lundstram and Rico and their like have changed the game. suddenly there's that value, and suddenly I can load up on some bigger players up top. And I think you're right.
And even Chelsea as well have got such great value players.
Absolutely right.
So
Absolutely.
we're in this position where there's the premiums that aren't performing, and then you've got so many players under 8 million that are performing. It's then hard to pick your formation, and it might be the time to be a bit more flexible. But going into the festive period as well, we're going to see a high volume of games played over a short period of time. So that's going to be where we need this value and players on the bench that can come in for us.
Definitely. I mean, in seasons past, the likes of Dendoncker, or a cheap Brighton midfielder, cheap Stoke midfielder, not Joe Allen, he was marvellous, but a really dirt cheap one there, 4.51. They were like your first sub. They were your top of your bench. They're the guys you bring on. But now they're like whatever, because we've got so much value. As you said, as Holly said, when we're looking forward to the festive fixtures, or rather looking. Not so much forward, but anticipating the festive fixtures. There's going to be rotation, and we've got this amazing bench now. I think everyone's got a great bench,
could actually pull together. Yeah. You could pull together a pretty damn good FPL team for 80 mil now. I think
you can.
Because the premiums are so erratic, right?
However, there are some premiums to talk about. So neat segue time. Holly. There's a couple of teams packed full of premiums, but there's some interesting developments going to be happening. Not only are they playing each other, but there's a bit of a fixture swing. So Holly, who are we talking about in the team section?
Yeah, so we've got this big fixture coming up this weekend, haven't we? Manchester City v Liverpool. So Manchester City square up to Liverpool this weekend, and then City's fixtures stiffen while Liverpool's fixtures improve. It means that there could be some tough decisions ahead for fantasy managers as they juggle their premiums. And we've got some community questions about these two teams. So Alligator has asked, KDB doesn't seem as essential anymore. Is he worth sacrificing for a Liverpool midfielder instead of Sterling? Alligator says, which do you prefer, a Liverpool midfield double up or defensive double up, and why? El Polaco says Salah or Mane or both. Shiva Destroyer, which Liverpool triple up looks better, especially with Liverpool's Game Week 18 blank in mind? And FPL Foxy asks, several of us don't have Mane and have Salah instead. Do we do the straight swap or swap Sterling to Mane instead? Now, I think the big question that needs answering, first of all, is this whole situation with Mane and Salah. Now, we've seen that Salah started in the Champions League and Mane's been benched, which probably came as a bit of a surprise for a lot of us, especially with that ankle injury for Salah. I mean, I made the switch from Salah to Mane a few weeks ago, and I've not really looked back from that point. I thought I would have serious FOMO, and I've got away with it and not being too stressed about it either. So I know that's a move that a lot of managers are going to make. It does depend what happens in the Champions League tonight, but we need to be thinking about where we want to go with this Liverpool triple up going forwards. And is it going to be a Manchester City midfielder that we lose at the expense of one of those? So for me, I'm looking at Sterling and De Bruyne in my team at the moment, and I know both of you are in the same situation, thinking, well, I could get funds out of one of those players, spread the cash around, maybe go for a Liverpool defensive double up going forward. It's just a tricky time to decide what's best to do, especially with Manchester City's fixtures, because they've got 4 really tough games in the next 6. Lee, what are you thinking in terms of your Man City double up in midfield?
I think you've hit the nail on the head. I have Sterling and De Bruyne now, and right now, certainly the last couple of games, neither of them has really sort of set the world right. Particularly Sterling in that last game. I've already spoken before about the disappointment of not seeing Mendy on the team sheet and seeing Angelino, I don't think, given that the fixture's coming up, I don't think I want either of those two. However, I just get some comfort in having them in my team. Kevin De Bruyne, all right, he might have had a little bit of a dip in form over the last couple, but the guy's been sensational this season, right? I mean, we only got to go cast our minds back 3 or 4 weeks, and he was almost like the sort of default captain choice for a lot of people in FPL. So I don't think I want to get rid of De Bruyne yet. Plus, I have quite a lot of value tied up in him because I got onto him pretty early. Sterling is the opposite, though. I don't have as much value tied up in Sterling. Therefore, of the two, I think I would be more inclined to lose Sterling. And then, I mean, Sam asked me this question the other day. She said, well, if you get rid of Sterling, which premium are you going to bring in? And in my head, I thought, well, I actually don't know, because I'm not, I know that his red card got rescinded, but I'm probably not going to bring in Son right now based on Spurs form. I could double up and bring Salah back in so that I've got Salah and Mane. That's potential, but I don't like the way that Liverpool and Salah are having to manage this ankle injury at the moment. There's reports before game week 11 about how he's having to, manage that ankle, and there's got drain fluid off of it and all that sort of stuff, right?
Basically, as soon as anyone says Premier League football and drain fluid from a leg, and they're within the same sentence, I just whoa.
Yeah, sounds pretty grim.
Yeah, and I'm not, I can't sit here and say bringing in Salah's the wrong thing to do, because it's Mo Salah, but right now he doesn't quite look himself. Obviously, watch a lot of Liverpool. The ankle doesn't sound great, and if you're looking at him in terms of the eye test, I mean, Liverpool went up several gears actually after he left the pitch against Aston Villa, and Mane took it upon himself to take that game by the scruff of the neck. So of the two, I think I would absolutely go Mane. So I don't like the Liverpool double up. I don't like Pepe. I mean, I need to see far more form from him. So I'm then looking at sort of 7 and 8 million midfielders. So if I did downgrade Sterling to an 8 million or a 7 million midfielder, I'd have a hell of a lot of money to invest elsewhere in the team. But then I don't like any of the premiums up front. So I'm doing a really bad job of answering your question, Polly. But of the two, I think Sterling would be the one to go, given the fixtures coming up. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was looking at the same thing, and I was thinking, gut feeling was De Bruyne is someone I want to keep for the whole season, but then I think so. Sterling's the one that's in form at the moment, and I'm in exactly the same position as you. If I sell Sterling, I'm probably going to drop down to a Leicester midfielder and then spread the funds elsewhere, but then I don't want to make the other moves and take a hit this week going into the international break. And then the other flip side of it is, do I really want to sell Sterling for a Leicester midfielder right now? And then have 6 million in the bank for game week 12. I feel like that could come down to bite me. So it is a really tough one to decide what's the best to do in this situation. And it's probably going to be one of those things that we need to reflect on what happens in the Champions League before we can make those decisions.
Yeah.
Whereabouts are you, Joe?
Me, yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting what Lee said, that he's struggling to get the words right for this answer to this question, and I'm the same because I think it's one of the toughest questions because there's so much to it as well. It's not just swapping a player for another player. It's about team structure. It's about strategy going forward. It's about it's not just form. It's just everything. There's so many pros and cons, and I'm not even going to say, you can make a right or wrong. You can make a logical choice, and pretty much all of the decisions you make are going to be logical choices. You're talking about loads of good players here, but you're going to have to remove a good player if you want another good player. So I'm undecided at the moment, but, let's talk through my process and maybe I might come to a decision. I think there is merit in the Liverpool midfield double up, and that's something, if Salah's draining of the fluid from his leg has finished finally and the fluid has been removed, and he's back to being what he does, shooting lots and scoring, then I'm more than happy to go for Mane and Salah. It would actually fit with me, but I would have to move Sterling there. So ditching a Man City mid, it would be Sterling. I agree with Lee there. I'm going to be keeping De Bruyne. I think he's great value. I think he's got great points. He's got more points than Sterling. He's just simply better value. And I think to remove him now, it would cost me more to get in. I can't see his price going down because he's lovely. So let's have a look at those fixtures. Liverpool have got City next, obviously, and then they've got Crystal Palace, Brighton, Everton, Bournemouth and Watford. These are great fixtures. And Man City is Liverpool, Chelsea, bad fixtures. Newcastle away, which is a hard to call fixture these days, because Newcastle at home are just not sure about them. Burnley away. Now Burnley are not in good form, so that could be good. That's the one I'd be worried about. And then they've got Manchester United at home. You never know. It's a derby, so we just don't know. And then Arsenal. I think you'd expect there to be goals there. I'm not sure. I'm much more certain about goals with Liverpool. Mane for me looks the best. I think any strategy I have and anyone should have should involve him somewhere. Salah, Mane, or Mane and two Liverpool defenders. So I think Salah's second best now when it comes to cost. And there's not much between Robertson and Alexander. I don't think people can argue that there is, marginal points, but I think they're just both great defenders who are worth what they're priced at. Hand on heart, I think Mane, Robertson and Alexander is the way forward. Whether I do that is another matter. I should do that because it's logical. I should do it because I've got Otamendi and I've got enough money in the bank to get Robertson and I can get him in now. And I don't
go for it.
Easy move.
Easy move. I could also spend a hit if I wanted and just move Salah to Mane and just take that hit on the chin, which is also logical, I think. I love Mane as well. I do have Salah. Now, last season, I ended up in hospital and all these kinds of things. But what kept me going was knowing that even though I couldn't alter my team, I had Mane in for Salah, and Mane I knew I could just leave there and do wonderful things, and he does, and he's in even better form this season.
He's a great player.
I should have made that swap
really
earlier. One of the reasons I don't like my Connolly move is I've essentially wasted a transfer. I could have made a variety of moves, perhaps with only one or no hits, but now I'm looking at sort of mini wildcard territory. And I don't like that. I feel a bit uncomfortable with that. So I just wanted to add a couple of things, stats for Robertson and AlexanderArnold. So I have in the Fantasy Football Scout members area, you can create your own tables. I have created one a while ago called Best Defenders, and it's like Ron Seal, does what it says there. So, I've listed it to minutes per baseline bonus. It listed all sorts of other things, chances created, goal attempts, and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of getting bonus points for just turning up and doing your stuff, not scoring, not assisting, not clean sheets, just doing your stuff, Robertson is top. He's getting a baseline bonus point every 4.4 minutes, which is amazing. Alexander-Arnold just behind him, more or less the same actually. And then behind them you've got the likes of Ake at Bournemouth, who is a shrewd differential for those that have gone for him. Williams at Newcastle, another shrewd differential. Tarkowski, not a shrewd differential. And of course Dunk and Webster, my lads at Brighton, very good for getting baseline bonus there. The other thing about Alexander-Arnold, I like 23 corners he's taken. Okay, 17 chances created, 61 crosses. He's superhuman.
Just a phenomenon.
I say, they're broadly similar. I mean, it's like the old Animal Farm thing, four legs good, 2 legs better. Robertson's good. Alexander-Arnold's just better. Just better there. So yeah, that's my thoughts. So KDB is going to stay. I think he's just top. He's top for me, I think, in terms of all those sorts of things. Points, value, everything. Look at my team. Eye test as well. Every time I see Man City play, I like looking at him. Doesn't matter where he plays. He can play deep in midfield and he will still get crosses into the box. He's just obsessed with assisting goals. There we go. But yeah, and also another thing, this is going to bring on to the mistakes section for me. Just final point on this. I think the time for relying on Salah and Sterling for the captaincy has gone, basically.
Yeah.
Was it even ever there?
And it was there in my head and everyone else's head.
Game week 1.
And it's just gone.
Game week 1, it went well.
Game week 1, there was a nice idea, and it's just gone. And it's time for me to move on. It's time for others to move on there. Anyway. But yeah, I mean, before we move on to our talking point, which kind of brings in a lot of those issues. Yeah, Holly, did you want to mention anything else? Anything else to add about Man City and Liverpool and your decisions there?
The only thing I would say is that tonight Liverpool playing Genk in the Champions League, and Klopp has rested Mane, he's rested Robertson. Let me just have a look. I've got the lineup in front of me here, but Trent is playing. Oh, Firmino, of course, as well, yeah. But interestingly, obviously I'm here not watching the game, but if I was, and by the way, I packed my TV up because I'm moving house, so I couldn't have watched it anyway. But interestingly, he's played Oxlade-Chamberlain and Keita today. So he's gone, even though he hasn't got Firmino and Mane playing, so reasonably attacking lineup. So of all the talk around those, the front three, and rightly so, if you're looking for a bit of a differential route into that Liverpool team, my view as a Liverpool fan is that Keita is just on the cusp of being a bit more of a regular in that team, and Oxlade-Chamberlain starting to perform a bit more at the level that we used to see from him before the major knee injury. So just keep your eye out for those two. They could be handy differentials after the Man City game. Okay,
interesting. And Holly, you got any final thoughts on what Champions League might tell you about your decisions?
Well, it's one of those things that if we do look at maybe a double up on Liverpool midfielders to come, I don't know. I wouldn't like to be trying to decide between Salah and Mane for the captaincy every single week, but I think Trent and Robertson's probably the way to go long term, a double up on the defence than the attack. And then you've not got that headache of who you're going to captain each week, and they're going to provide such great value. And hopefully we'll see a few more clean sheets from Liverpool.
Yeah, I think it's a big thing. I wish I'd made that Mane Salah swap earlier. I mean, I may never do it. I mean, I want to do it, but yeah, it's. I mean, logically, there's other moves to be made, and maybe I'll just always think Salah's doing enough. But God, Mane's really good, isn't he? And anyway, let's move on to our talking points. So we're going to be asking, I'll be asking both of you, and be revealing what the community think about FPL mistakes, and crucially how we have learned from them as well. So let's have a picture of one mistake that I think I remember. Holly, was it one you made with Kane in earlier this season?
Yeah, I started with Kane game week 1, which it was a great decision game week 1.
It was.
It wasn't beyond. Game week 1, I nailed it, but then since then,
I was talking about how Lundstram's like Joe Allen, and isn't that amazing? But Kane's now like Joe Allen, and that's not so amazing. And so this is a question I put up on Twitter. So I asked loads of people. You can see there, as of earlier today, 111 people actually responded to that. So I can't get through everyone's mistakes and stuff. So I have pinned that tweet. So have a look at my Twitter account. It's on there, and you can look through the lessons that the community has been learning from their own mistakes. Lots of great stuff there. So let's go with you first, Holly. What has been your big FPL mistake this season? And crucially, is there anything has it been a mistake that you've learnt from?
Yeah, I think you've touched on it already. I think it was starting with Kane game week 1. I was toying between Kane or De Bruyne as my third premium to go alongside Sterling and Salah, and if I'd have gone the other way, I'd have been in a lot better position than I am right now. So that's something that I've got to learn from. The thinking behind it initially was that I just didn't trust De Bruyne's fitness, and I wanted to see him get through the first 4 weeks and through the international break before I thought about bringing him in. And I don't like bringing in players that are injury prone, and that's why I was cautious with it. But with a player like De Bruyne, when he was starting the season at 9.5 million, which is cheaper than he's ever been in the game, and you know what he can do, and there was good signs in pre-season as well, I think it was wrong to doubt him and be cautious about it. Whereas if I'd have gone for it, I would have been doing a lot better than I am now. So that's probably my biggest regret of the season so far. And then it's just the captaincy as well. It's just I can't seem to land it. I think I've had two captaincy returns and a vice captain that's returned, and maybe an odd assist somewhere. But yeah, it's 2 game weeks my captain scored out of 11. So
just put it on Lundstram, Holly. Set and forget.
Yeah, I need to. But it's like last season when I did really well, it was the captaincy that was probably the biggest influence on it. I think I went like 13 game weeks without getting a captaincy fail. So it can have a massive impact on your points. And if you look at the standings, there's still a lot of managers that are quite closely clustered together. So I'm hopeful that in the coming weeks I can make a move and start moving up those rankings, but it has had a big impact on my rankings.
Holly, do you think with the Kane issue and being a premium player as well, do you think one of the issues to learn from that is a lesson that I sort of had to teach myself a while ago, was just sort of having too many premiums, as it were. And looking back, as you talk about De Bruyne, and I didn't start with De Bruyne. I went for Vardy in that sort of price point. But looking back, that was phenomenal value for De Bruyne. And I think many people overlooked him for all the reasons that you've given. And having Kane, and it's just looking at that price tag really, and looking at value, and perhaps that might be something we consider more in future. Instead of saying, "Oh, Kane's an 11 million." player and so he should perform well, I was more thinking, well, hang on a minute, De Bruyne is going to perform well, but wow, he's undervalued by about 1.5 million here. So do you think that might be something as well, just looking at price in a different way?
Yeah, I mean that 1.5 million that I'd have saved by going De Bruyne over Kane would have been very useful elsewhere in my squad, because I
Mm,
did find in those early weeks I had placeholders at the wrong prices, like Oliver Norwood at 5 million, for example, and I was a little bit strangled by the fact that I did have Kane sat there up front, and then I sort of needed the wild card to sort things out, but then missed some rises on other players. So yeah, I think the game's becoming more about value for money rather than premiums performing, because we've not, like, at this stage of the season we can't call the golden boot race yet, and I think there's a lot of premiums that aren't performing how we'd expect them to. So we have got to take note of that and adjust our strategies going forwards.
Yeah, what about you, Lee? What's been your big mistake, and what have you learnt?
yeah, so I think in terms of, I mean, mistakes is one thing. I mean, when you posed a question to me via email earlier, and there was a thing about what mistakes you've made, but also what's made you think differently
Yeah.
about FPL this year. And one of the things that I'm only just realising now, maybe my mistake is I haven't realised this earlier, is the power of the differential this season. And we all know it's the art of FPL. You get on a differential early, and under 5% owned, under 10% owned, and they can shoot you up the rankings. Well, going back to something Holly said just a second ago, the game is very bunched up right now. There are a lot of FPL managers that are quite closely together. The spectrum is not quite as broad between first and 7 millionth right now, I don't think. So on that basis, bringing in a differential, a calculated gamble, if you like, can boost you up way more than you would ordinarily think. So I think my learning point so far this season is I've kind of looked at my team a few times and just thought, that's a bit boring. It's a bit template almost. And, bringing in Vardy, for example. I've not bought in Vardy this week. That would be a really obvious move for me to make. But I'm going a little bit, not out there, but I'm just taking a little bit of an educated, sort of calculated gamble on Jimenez, and I'm giving away my transfers for later on, so I apologise for that. But I'm going for Jimenez on the basis that, if he scores, then I get a nice boost up the rankings. So I think my learning point is, the template is not a bad thing, right? Template is good because you can consolidate, and the template's there for a reason because those are the players that are doing well. But I think my learning point and how I'm thinking differently about FPL is, don't underestimate the power of a differential. Taking a little bit of a gamble here or there is a good thing. I mean, a few game weeks back, I played my wild card and I got Pepe in on my wild card, largely because of the reputation that he was coming to the Premier League with, not because he'd shown any FPL, goodness in the first sort of 5 or so weeks. But it just so happened that I think in game week 6 or 7, I can't remember when it was now, but when Aubameyang gave him the penalty so that he kind of got off the mark, that was great. I mean, that was 8 or 9 points, but it shot me up sort of 45, 50,000 places, because at the time he was a massive differential. He was only sort of 2 or 3% owned. And if I think about when I bought Otamendi in, not long after the Laporte injury, I bought him in more or less straight away. He was only about 3 or 4% owned. Then he ended up getting the 15-pointer against Watford. So I think what I'm going to try and do from now on is, I will be largely still a templatey sort of player. I will have, the core there of the template, or the popular players, the highly owned players. But I will start to just take little mini risks here and there, because I think even a mini risk now can really shoot you up the rankings, given how bunched up the game is.
Yeah, I mean, some way I've been doing that for a while, and I think it's a very good lesson. I say in theory I try and do that, but what I try and do is use those what I've been called price points, and what I do is I tend to have a role that's a sort of differential role. So I look around to see who are those types of players that I can get in. So I did highlight a couple of weeks ago Jimenez. I thought form was good. I mean, like you're getting him in now. I just thought that lots of managers will want him. Maybe not this week, but they're going to just want him as the weeks go on. And I just thought he would get points, and he was low owned at the time. I sort of reserved that striker role for that. And I found that's quite a useful way. You just look around and you can shop around and say who's in that price point. So, for example, I could possibly get a midfielder at the moment, no hit, for about 5.9, 6 million. I think just over 6 million. So I wouldn't perhaps look for McGinn, who I've seen in many teams. I might perhaps be looking at Grealish. I might be looking at Trossard. They're the sorts of players I would look at, because I've sort of reserved that role for being a differential. But the others roles, like the Sterling role or the Salah role, these are for Mane, these are for De Bruyne. These I'm not messing around with them. I don't care about ownership there, high own, low own, whatever. I'm just getting those players in. So, but yeah, so I don't know. I found that quite useful over the years, just to have a sort of a point, maybe a fourth defender kind of point as well. This season, I don't think we don't even need it with Lundstram and Rico, but it's that kind of thing. Just hopefully some people will think about that. So my mistake that I've been learned for is something. I like to be flexible with the team. So I immediately I didn't do like 5 defenders, 5 starting defenders at the start of the season. I just wanted to be flexible. But I think my mistake this season is I haven't been flexible enough. And that's because I've been a bit constrained. I've constrained myself with De Bruyne, Sterling and Salah. So that's constrained where I'm, the flexibility, the yogic potential of my team. So, for example, one thing I did is I brought Connolly in thinking it would be quite flexible. Because every week I was making transfers and I was bang on 0.0. This way I've got 1.8 in the bank. Well, hey, flexibility. But now I can't get Vardy in. And I'd looked at all of the possibilities that I could do with flexibility. I always want to get a player within 2 moves. And this week, if I hadn't have made any move, I would have 2 free transfers. I would swap King and someone else and get Vardy in. No hit. Now I have to take that hit. So I think the lesson I've learned there is to be a bit more like a chess player. Now, by coincidence, the world chess champion, Magnus Carlsen, I don't know if you're aware, this is an amazing FPL player as well. And
is he? Right, okay.
And I would dearly love to get him on Meet the Manager. So if he is watching here, we would love to interview you for a little bit about your techniques. But I'm going to come to an assumption that it helps him being a world chess champion. And I would like to be a bit more chess-like. That's the lesson I'd like to learn, is to be a bit more chess-like and think. So I was thinking about flexibility. I didn't think about the Vardy move. I thought if I want Vardy, I want to get rid of Jimenez for him. Do I really want to do that? No, I didn't think far enough in advance about how I would be in certain situations. But I think a world chess champion would be. I'm not a world chess champion, but I like the idea of having a more of a chess mentality, and so that's something I'll be hopefully taking from this season. But meanwhile, there's the community have been answering that question in their droves as well. So FPL Luck has said, don't beat yourself up when a logical decision doesn't go well, e.g. captaining Sterling and Salah. This is something that both of you have mentioned about the captaincy as well, not getting it right. But you shouldn't beat yourselves up. I don't know if it is a mistake, if it's logical. But, with hindsight, I think it's proved that. But he said that he's had 8 out of 11 captaincy blanks from that strategy.
Yeah, it's tough.
So I think the mistake would be to look at that and say, I'm going to keep doing that. And I think the logical thing would be to say, it's time for it to go as well. I don't know, is that something that both of you think as well about the captaincy? It's time to look elsewhere. It's time to have a different strategy.
It's just been so unpredictable this season, though. Like Manchester City, you were expecting them to win games easily, and then they had that struggle against Norwich and lost 2-0 at home to Wolves. We couldn't have predicted that. Everyone was, tipping Manchester City to get the biggest ever away victory in the Premier League in that game against Norwich. And then the next week, they're winning 8-0 against Watford. And then Leicester, from nowhere, go and get the biggest away, winning the Premier League with a 9-0 at Southampton. It's just so difficult to predict everything. We're just ripping up the rule book week after week, and we think we've settled on a template, and we've pinpointed players as being on a certain trend, performing at home or being a good captaincy in certain situations, and then it all goes to pot. So it just makes it so difficult.
You sound exasperated, Holly.
I mean, to be honest, the signs were there with this guy we got on the screen, Kane. About 2 or 3 seasons ago, I remember I got Kane in. I was doing terribly. I was like sub 2 million, something like that around Christmas. I got in. Kane was going to be my saviour. I got him in. He had 2 amazing home games. One of them against Burnley. What could go wrong? Well, he blanked in both of them. That's what went wrong. And so I sort of begrudgingly accept it. But I think, it's just time to look elsewhere. I think Mane. Instead of Salah, I think Mane. I think the logic is there in going for these good players, but I think De Bruyne and Mane instead of Sterling and Salah could be a better strategy there.
I mean, you've only got to look at the Premier League table, though, Joe. You look at the.
Yeah.
I mean, we're used to seeing the usual names at the top, and this season we're seeing some unusual names at the top. I mean, I think a few of us in pre-season were thinking Leicester were going to have a good season. I don't think many of us were predicting just how good a season they're having, and I think we'll continue to have. The fixtures look great for the next few weeks. So, should we be now not looking at Mane, Salah, Sterling, and De Bruyne, and looking at Maddison, Vardy? The Chelsea assets, Abraham, Mount. Yes, absolutely. To answer your question directly, we should be looking elsewhere. And particularly this game week is a good game week to do it, given you've got a fairly unpredictable game happening at Anfield where, a lot of us are going to have potential captaincy options. It is, I think, this game week to look at your Chelseas, your Leicesters and your Wolves maybe, or your Arsenals.
Here's another mistake and a lesson learned. FPL Belgian, focusing on an inconsistent team because of one good fixture. He doesn't want to do that anymore. And he gives the example of West Ham v Norwich. And there's loads of other examples like that. You see a fixture, it doesn't have to be, suddenly you think because the fixture's so amazing, the team will be amazing. But obviously not looking at form. Is that something either of you have done or learned from?
Yeah, I mean,
oh
goodness me, you've mentioned him. Yeah, I mean, I tend to be a fixtures sort of guy. I will obviously look at the form and see who's playing well, but if the fixture looks good, I will. Just my natural thinking is I will think there for the armband. But I probably need to change that. Because as Holly was saying before, it's an unpredictable season, and anyone can beat anybody genuinely in the Premier League. So yeah, maybe I need to start looking at form a bit closer than fixtures. Yeah, what do you do, Holly? Are you form or fixtures?
Well, I try and get a balance of both. So that's one of the reasons why I'm trying to move away from Manchester City assets, because the fixtures are tough, and they've only scored about 7 goals in their last 4 games, which is way below what we expect of them. They seem to be the team that we normally go to for getting 3 or 4 goals every game. So I think you need to have more of a, maybe slightly weight it towards form rather than the fixtures, but certainly not just chasing fixtures when there's no form there. I mean, I got Callum Wilson in ahead of his home game against Norwich, and then he got a couple of blanks in a row. And I seem to have labelled Watford as a team that can't defend, but in the last few games they've really turned it around as well. So you've just got to be flexible and keep reacting to what you're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's bringing back to my key word again, flexibility, and I think that's always the way. It's just that is what the top managers, the ones that interview on those Meet the Manager series, the ones who getting somehow getting like top 500 every season, and it's just that flexibility. They're just always flexible with their team. Here's another one. FPL PTSD. He says the mistake's been to make knee-jerk rage transfers. So he's doing a bit better this season by spending a little bit more time thinking about each move. I don't know if either of you got thoughts on that. I mean, it sounds obvious, but yeah, stop making knee-jerk transfers.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely the right thing to do not to make knee-jerk transfers. Yeah, I think given that actually, we mentioned it a few times, there's some predictability this season, it is absolutely worth, particularly in a Champions League week, particularly in a League Cup week, waiting until that Thursday, Friday. I personally think I'd be interested to hear what you guys have got to say about team value this season. I'm placing a lot less, I was going to say a lot less value on team value, but no, what I mean, I'm spending less time thinking about building team value up and focusing far more on who's the right player for that game week. So, Joe, are you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always, my hashtag is points not pounds, and it has been for years.
Yeah, right.
And that's the way it is. And there was a guy on Twitter I was talking to this week. I haven't got his tweet up in front of me, but I remember it well because he was saying if he had, it does matter making those early transfers, getting those price rises, because if he did. He would have, much more money in the bank, and he would have, better upgrade certain player to certain player. But that relies on you getting rid of really good players like De Bruyne, for example, that you got money tied, you've got that profit tied up in, and it also relies on an expensive asset performing well, which we've seen this season they don't. So the likes of Lundstram offer that value. So it brings us on nicely. Actually, I just want to mention this guy here. It says Greg Bannon. This is another mistake. This fits in nicely. Make sure you ignore player price when picking your 11 and bench, e.g. Lundstram. So once again, he's looking at a mistake, looking at the player and looking at the price, and then assuming certain things because of the price. And so that's I echo those thoughts. I'm with Greg Bannon on this one. Holly, what do you reckon about the whole issue of value?
Yeah, I naturally set up my team to have the most expensive players on the pitch. I think it's just something that you instinctively do. You've spent the pounds on them, you want them playing every week, and it takes a while to adjust. I mean, with Lundstram, I did miss his first big return. I think it was in game week 1, because I just had him labelled as the 4.0 defender fodder. And then every time I go to set up my team, I'm wanting to put in the more expensive players, and then I'm looking at Lundstram and he's coming back off the bench, and I think, no, I've got to start him in this game. And you've just got to remain flexible and see the players on quality and on merit. It was an error for FPL to price Lundstram as a 4 million defender, and the likes of some of the Chelsea attackers are looking really underpriced this season as well. So I think we need to think more about what these players are worth. And for the likes of Lundstram, not seeing him sat in the defence and thinking, should he be there? Should he be not? Is he going to keep a clean sheet in this game? Because you need to think of what he would look like sat in your fantasy midfield instead.
Look at him as an informed Joe Allen. That's what he is. Would you play? And remember when he was at Stoke and he was scoring every week? And
so this is like 5 or 6 Joe Allen references.
I know, because I think it's because it's an unfashionable player in an unfashionable team that is widely ignored, and then suddenly everyone goes, "Oh, maybe I should have him in my team." But that's the kind of player he is, because he is an attack-minded midfielder, and that's the way I look at it. So I look at my team, and if I've got 4 at the back and I've got Lundstram there, I haven't got 4 at the back. I've got 3 at the back. I've got an extra midfielder, and that's the way I look at it. There. So, and I think other people have done very similar with, say, Alonso, for example. Just ignore that Alonso is listed as defender when he was in his pomp with Chelsea, and you just got a winger who you happen to get points with clean sheets. A couple more questions. A couple of more mistakes, I should say, and lessons learned. Flapjack, look beyond the stats, he says. Now, this is something that I've talked about with David many times in this Scoutcast. Ignore the stats. He's a stats buster. Don't look at Vardy and stats. He was put off Vardy and Leicester due to their poor underlying attacking stats. Yeah. I mean, that's a simple lesson that we've learned for like 3 years now. Just it's getting through to people gradually. But I don't care about stats with Vardy. He just scores. Even when he doesn't look like he's going to score, he just scores. And
that game against Palace was so
Vardy.
A Vardy goal, wasn't it? He didn't have a sniff the whole game, and I'm very bitter because I don't own him, by the way. But he didn't have a sniff the whole game, and then he just popped up as Palace were pushing forward. So I own James Maddison, who for me was the best player on the park against Palace. He was so creative, fantastic player. And then, Vardy popped up right at the last minute, and Sam's got him, and I didn't. I was very upset.
And the final lesson learned is from Richard Brooke here. He said, I've learned not to move house during the FPL season. Now, Holly, you've just moved house, and Lee, you are incredibly appearing on the Scoutcast within 24 hours of moving house tomorrow.
We have the removal man. It's all set. Yeah.
But I think this is especially pertinent because it's not just about moving house; it's about real life. So it's about any lessons learned around juggling real life with your fantasy football life as well. So go with you, Lee, first, because you've got plenty on your plate tomorrow morning when you move. But yeah, how do you is any lessons to be learned about juggling real life with fantasy football life?
No, do you know what? I mean, it helps when you have a wife that's incredibly well organised and does all of the house moving, and actually I can focus on my fantasy team. We are moving in the morning, So at 9 a.m. we have the removal van coming out. You can probably see all the boxes here on my left, and you can see the Spurs trophy cabinet here on my right. We are ready to. We are literally ready to go. To answer your question, though, I think I don't know. I think it is a balance, but I think I manage it pretty well. Though, I mean, one of the things I tend to do quite a lot of is there's so much great content out there, so many great podcasts and so many great YouTube channels that I just, when I commute to work, I take the train into work most days into London. So rather than listening to music on Spotify or the radio, what I used to do, I'll listen to a podcast now. Or if if I go for a walk at lunch or a break or something at work, I will listen to a podcast. So I just fit it in, Joe, to be honest with you. I mean, over the last few weeks, particularly with the house move going on, I have had less time. We got 2 kids as well, Sam and I. So we had, frankly, had less time to spend on FPL. But actually, I've had 2 or 3 quite good game weeks. So
do you think?
I sometimes wonder whether the overthinking in it and the, if you've got something else to occupy your time, maybe sometimes the obvious move is the right move. I mean, you guys have said it on Scoutcast a number of times. Don't overthink it sometimes. The obvious move is sometimes the right thing. And absolutely.
This comes back for me personally, my mistake. Connolly in. I think I was overthinking things and I didn't really think about the obvious. But and I think you're right there. Holly, as well, you've moved recently, but also you have real life as well as fancy football. How do you juggle the two?
Well, I think I can say with moving house, that can be my excuse for not doing too well this season. But I'd like to use it as an excuse. But last season I had the excuse of having a baby and I had one of my best seasons ever. So I think I obviously need to have more babies because it obviously benefits my FPL team.
There's a lesson to be learned.
I hope your other half is watching, Holly.
I think it's all those sleepless nights, and it gives you time to have a bit of clarity at 2 a.m. during the night feed that you can browse through Twitter and there's still some solace there in some FPL advice. And you can see things clearly.
I was reminded that a lot of the Norwich teams' wives and girlfriends are having babies at the moment, and it's been traced back to their victory over Leeds 9 months ago. Anyway, just thought I'd mention that. I think we've had I think we've had a lot of soul searching for now, but it's something we'll come back to. I've enjoyed that one. Let's have a look at some differentials though. So looking ahead for game week 12 and beyond, so we tend to look at the next 4 game weeks. So it was a bad week for some of our recent differential picks. Perez picked by Andy didn't do so well for Leicester. Well, probably the only Leicester player that didn't. Hudson-Odoi from Sam as well. Started off okay, but started petering out. Mahrez from Tom, that was just a no-no. I don't know what he was thinking. And my Maupay pick, Neil Maupay, did really well and then didn't do so well last week. So, okay. So, Lee, as a Scoutcast debutant, let's see if you can do any better. Who is the 5% or under-owned player who will bring in the points over the next 4 game weeks, do you think?
Yeah, so given that it's my first one, I thought I'd go out there. I thought I'd go really out on a limb, and I've gone for Danny Ings. Danny Ings is we're clutching at some straws right now, Joe. 2.8% owned, 6 million in the game. Saints are woefully out of form, no doubt about it, and Hasenhüttl's got a real job on his hands right now. But I think I just saw a glimmer of hope in that Manchester City. I know they got beat, right? But there was a performance there for them to build on. Now, clearly, the week before that, there was absolutely no redeeming features of that Southampton mauling against Leicester City. But against Man City, I did see the green shoots of recovery. There was some character there. Now, before the Leicester City game, Danny Ings was in reasonable form. He did score in game weeks 7, 8 and 9. Now, I don't think Southampton themselves picked up many points over those 3 game weeks, but Ings did. So I'm kind of intrigued to see how they get on this weekend against Everton. That under the circumstances, obviously we wish Andre Gomez all the best. It's a horrific injury, wasn't it? But the impact on Everton is that they haven't won a game without Andre Gomez this season. So perhaps that makes them
and they're awful away. They're absolutely awful away, but okay at home. So
yeah, and their away form is terrible. So I'm going to go with Danny Ings. He's had a goal attempt every 17 minutes in his home games, which is above the likes of Salah, Aguero, Sterling, Vardy, Aubameyang. Any premium that you care to pick, he has more attempts per minute than any of those guys when he's at home. So it's a bit of a different story away, but when he's at home, he's good. I look back at the game, this particular game, this time last season, and Ings played well. He got an assist for a Digne own goal, would you believe? But Saints won it 2-1. Everton were very sloppy in possession. Hasenhüttl's high pressing style really came to the fore. And I wonder, without Andre Gomez, with that bad Everton away form, might we see the same sort of sloppiness in possession? Might we see the Saints coming back to form a little bit. So I'm clutching at straws a little bit, but I'm going for Danny Ings.
I think that one could come in. I mean, Danny Ings is someone that I've not necessarily considered for my team, but I do think that there's points there for him. I mean, the fixtures, I think behind Wolves, Southampton have got the next best set of upcoming fixtures, probably from an attacking perspective. And you can take that 9-0 out of the equation in some ways, because basically the red card came very early, changed the game. And, with Danny Ings, like, if he can stay fit, and he had been playing 90 minutes, which suggests to me that he is fit.
So there's a massive firework just went off, sorry.
That's all right.
It's the Danny Ings effect.
Yeah.
You've got to bear in mind that he's a poacher and he can get his goals from anywhere, and he's against the teams like Everton, who don't travel well, Arsenal, that are conceding a lot of shots, Watford, Norwich, Newcastle, West Ham. He could easily poach a few goals in those games. So fingers crossed for you, Lee.
Yeah, he's a good one. I like this one. I've obviously had to make differential picks myself, and another firework going off there.
Another one
to celebrate my Sebastian Haller pick earlier, probably. But I like these differentials when it's a cheaper striker with good fixtures coming up. I think they're good. And I was looking at, within the next 4, with Southampton at home to Watford and Norwich, that alone is just such a lovely block of fixtures, just those
Looks
2
right,
games. I think you're going to do well there. I think you're going to get points there. I think just suddenly struck me that Ward-Prowse, if someone is like me, they sometimes look for that kind of role in that kind of price point in midfield. Ward-Prowse could be quite an intriguing differential option. He's been very good in the past, actually, when Southampton have had good fixtures. So I don't know, maybe the set pieces.
He scored an absolute blinder in this fixture last season as well. So he was one I considered. For sure.
Do you know what? I'm starting to talk myself into Ward-Prowse now. See, this is
I won't be invited back on.
So this is the chess. This is the chess manager that I should be. I should be thinking of all possibilities, and I didn't think
0.7%
until now. I didn't think of Ward-Prowse until now, and I certainly didn't think of Danny Ings.
Joe, don't kid yourself. Make the dullard move.
No. Well, I know this is because it's a slot of excitement in my team. I've got all the dullard slots, so this one's got to be a bit more differential. So that that's still dullard in my books. You mentioned the fixtures there, Holly. Clean sheets. Yeah, who's got the best clean sheets coming up over the next 6 game weeks?
It's probably comes as no surprise to see Leicester top of the charts, and then we've got Wolves, Southampton, Newcastle, Liverpool. Those people considering the double up, perhaps, and Spurs. So,
there's a massive firework to herald Spurs' amazing fixtures.
I worry about you, Joe, every time a firework goes off, because it sounds like you're falling off your chair and onto the floor.
No, they're quite loud. My dog may start barking, so I'm amazed my dog's not freaking out at the moment. Because basically it sounds like a war zone. But, yes. Anyway, clean sheets, yes. Another one.
They're brilliantly timed as well. That's what I love about them.
I mean, Leicester, I really want to get in a Leicester defender, and it's probably a move that I should have made a few weeks ago, which I hadn't made, and it's still firmly on the agenda. I was going to do Peters to Soonju, but I think Peters' price dropped on Sunday, so I'm now 0.1 million off. So I'm a bit snookered at the moment with how I'm going to get these Leicester defenders in. But looking at this, I do think that they'll struggle to keep a clean sheet this weekend against Arsenal. So I think for that reason, I may not prioritise it. But I think that fixture Leicester against Arsenal always tends to be quite a fiery one with a lot of goals involved. Cue the fireworks.
Yeah, massive
but then
fireworks.
beyond that, I definitely need to have one of them in. Wolves is a bit of a tricky one with Wolves because they do seem to have a lot of good defensive qualities that we like to see, but Willy Bowley's out now. Doherty's got a bit of a knock, and then they've got the Europa League as well. I think they might struggle to, fulfill their potential in terms of clean sheets over this run of games. And then I'm looking at the likes of Southampton and Newcastle, and I don't really know if if I would be looking to bring in any of their assets or place any trust in them. And I think you could put Spurs in that bracket as well. But Liverpool, once they've got that fixture, Sam's going to be knocking on that door again.
Stop digging out Spurs, Ollie, come on.
Because I know she's going to be watching this as well. Because you've been on
it.
Hopefully you've got no Wi-Fi for about a month.
Spurs defenders have just been such a problem for years now. You occasionally get like Davis, and you get Danny Rose, big fireworks for Danny Rose there. But pinning these guys down, are they going to start every week? And they're not, and it's so difficult. And there's always better options than Tottenham. So I think you're fair to criticise their defence there.
Yeah, I think Spurs defenders, they've had the day. The likes of Alderweireld and Vertonghen have been such good fantasy assets in the past, but I feel like they're just closing out their contracts. And as we mentioned earlier on the Scoutcast, we need a whole new squad, I think, with Spurs at the moment. There's too many players that aren't delivering what they ought to be. So that's where I'm at the moment.
Do you like Gazaniga at 4.4, 4.5?
Yeah, it could be an option. I mean, it's one of those that's looking a bit more short term than long term, isn't it? Because Lloris is going to be back at some point. I've currently got Nick Pope, and Burnley, as we've mentioned, are not in great form at the moment. So I'm starting to waver on him, but I'm not going to do a David Monday and prioritise a goalkeeper transfer when I've got a lot of other issues in my squad at the moment.
That was a major firework going off for the David Monday club there, and the goalkeeper moves.
He'll be happy with that.
I would, as a Henderson owner, I would recommend him. Everyone has got Lundstram now, and everyone's going to play him. So how are you going to turn that shield into a sword? Simple. Double up on the Sheffield United defence somehow, and I think one of their other defenders or Henderson is a good option there. But yeah, I like the look of those defensive options there. There's a lot of value there. Newcastle as well are being overlooked sometimes because you're not sure which Newcastle's going to turn up. But let's move on to try and make myself heard above this amazing fireworks display that's taking place. But let's move on to game week 12 and transfer and captaincy plans. Let's go for you first, Holly. We'll get your bus team up. Should the unfortunate happen with a bus to you this week. What moves are you planning? Have you already made moves? Yeah, what are you going for?
Well, I do like to roll the free transfer if I can going into an international break. And as I've already mentioned, I am a bit snookered at the moment. I had the choice to bring in Morpay or Connolly last week, and I went with Morpay because I thought that he'd be a better option. But now I'm looking at the fixtures and I'm not so sure. But I think I need to hold him for now. I'd love Jimenez, but I can't get to him easily. I'd love to get Sunju as well, but I can't get to him easily either. And I don't really want to take a hit and remove the likes of Sterling to get one of those players in. It just doesn't sit right with me at the moment. I think one of the biggest problems this week was deciding who to play and who to bench. I think there's arguments for playing Cantwell at home to Watford over Morpay away to Manchester United. So that's something I need to consider. I would love to play Peters against West Ham at home because I think he's got a great chance of getting attacking returns in that game, if not a clean sheet. But then I think I'd like to play Tomori because I think Chelsea have got a good chance for a clean sheet against Crystal Palace. And I don't really want to double up on the Burnley defence either. Lundstram, got to play him. Alexander-Arnold and Mane, I'm happy to play because I think Liverpool will have the upper hand in that game. And big thumbs up there from Lee. So I think I'm just going to roll the transfer because I'm in that situation where I'm not quite sure what to do, and all the moves that I want to make involve a hit, and I don't really want to take a hit going into the international break, and I'd rather have the flexibility coming out of the international break. And at that point, I may take a -4 or even a -8, but I don't want to make moves this week for players that I'm not necessarily bothered about having this week, but want long term. When there's so much that can happen between now and the game week 13 fixtures. Yeah,
I mean, it's funny. A lot of the players you wish you had, I do have in my team. But I look at your team and I wish I had the players I don't have. Yeah. I wish I had Mane.
Vardy.
I wish I had Vardy. Anyway, so I'll put my team up quickly because I don't know what I'm going to do. I haven't made any changes yet. I've currently got Jimenez as my captain. I've got Abraham as my vice captain. I think they're both very, very reasonable shouts for the captaincy. I'm rocking a 4-4-2 this week, so I think Lundstram. I keep benching Rico's points. I've had enough of that. I'm just going to play him against Newcastle. I just hope the wrong Newcastle turn up. Sionju's going to play just because I'm sick of benching all these defender points, so I'm just going to play him because I might as well. Lundstram, obviously, Alexander-Arnold because he's a winger. I just ignore the fact he's defender. I'm going for Pope over Henderson this week, so I think Lundstram. I don't know if Sheffield United are going to keep a clean sheet. I don't think they will. Lundstrom's there for attacking returns, really. The Joe Allen role, mentioned him again. Salah, I don't want. Sterling, I'm not sure I want. De Bruyne, I want. Mount, I want, and I've got Jimenez, captain. Abraham, vice captain. Connolly there on the bench. The things to look at, problems there. Otamendi's on the bench. He's just null and void. He's just a waste. So logically, this is the dullard thing I should do. Robertson, just replace him. Ignore the Liverpool midfield double up and go for a defensive double up. Like I said, I think it's a good option. Those defensive fixtures look good as well. Robertson looks the best replacement. I want Mane maybe the following week. I could just do a sideways move, Salah to Mane, and be done with it. And that way I get to keep Sterling as well. I want Vardy, but that's going to take some moves. It's going to take some hits. It's going to take one hit at least, and it's going to take removing a great player. Looking back at the lessons learned, some of the one mentioned earlier about looking at he mentioned inconsistent teams, but certainly looking at a fixture, I think that Vardy is a great captain this week. I think a lot of people are going to captain him. Yeah. And I think when he scores his inevitable goal or two, my rank will drop, so I should get him in. But I think the dullard in me says I should avoid that exciting move and I should do something very logical and boring. So I may well do that. But a lot will depend on the Champions League and press conferences. Do listen to mine and Neil's video later in the week. May have two videos. May have a Thursday and Friday. There's me. Don't know what I'm doing, but Jimenez captain for now. Lee, what about your team?
I love how you signed that off. There's me. Don't know what I'm doing. I feel the same. I'll be honest. Yeah. So there's my team. I got 2 free transfers this game week. I've made one already. The sausage rolls were particularly cold at the Pookie party. I was the only one left. Everybody had gone weeks ago, but I'd shown a bit of faith, which was not repaid. So he is gone before Watford at home, which felt a bit wrong as I hit the transfer button, but nevertheless, he's gone. And I brought Jimenez in because I do think that Jimenez is going to, showing a bit of form in the fixtures over the next 5 in particular, look fantastic for Wolves. So yes, they've got the Europa League, understand all of that, but I have a bit of a theory about they struggled with that early on in the season because it's difficult to get match fit early on in the season. Now we're into the season, they're into their stride. I think they're going to be all right, Wolves. And I like the look of Jimenez. So he's come in, he's my bus captain. It's between him and Abraham, I think. Weirdly, Abraham seems to be better away from home than he does at Stamford Bridge. So I'm not kind of sure how that Crystal Palace game is going to go. I think I backed Chelsea to win, but given that Chelsea are playing, again, Champions League football during the week, that might end up being a bit more of a challenging fixture for the Chelsea boys than we ordinarily might think. With the Liverpool and the Man City players, I'm just going to play them. I've thought about benching Sterling or De Bruyne, but let's just get, I'm not going to make wholesale changes in my team to either the Liverpool assets or the Man City assets, all 4 of which I'm pretty happy to have and want going forward, particularly the Liverpool boys. So I just play them and see what happens.
Yeah.
You neither of you even hesitated to put Lundstram in your team. I was the same. He's just absolutely is in there for me, no questions asked. Rico could get a spot. I think I agree with you, Joe. It depends which Newcastle turns up, but I'm kind of looking at the team.
He's a really good first sub there, and it's
yes, I think so.
That's that lesson learned we've been talking about is not to undervalue these guys, and Rico is deserved at least first sub.
Absolutely. I'm struggled to look at my 11 and think who would Rico come in for. So first sub is cool. So pretty happy with my team. Jimenez captain. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I think like last week, it's going to be down to Vardy. And I think this may potentially be this is what I'm going to be faced with, the decision. And it's going to be one of those weeks where, the likes of Holly with Vardy, captain, bingo, done. If Vardy does well, you're just going to do really well. But, because because we're not, because there's plenty of us without Vardy, and there's going to be some who don't even captain him. It's going to be a real divide there. Leicester, the decision. I tell you, it's times like this I'm really glad I play the Sky game, of which we're doing a video tomorrow. Another plug for a video with Luke, because I'm well Leicestered up in that. I've got Maddison, Sionju and Vardy as a regular captain. So I am enjoying the Leicester points somewhere, but it's the Sky.
As long as you got them somewhere.
I'm getting them somewhere. Just finally, I just want to mention the members area that we've mentioned a lot of the stats, the season ticker, a lot of those that data and information from Opta. It's all there. Do have a delve in there. I've been banging on about the comparison tool in there. I know, Lee, you mentioned that as well earlier. I'm finding that particularly useful though for those 50-50 calls. I'm not saying I'm going to get those 50-50 calls right, but at least I'm armed with the data to make a logical move for the inevitable mistake. But for now, whatever mistakes I make in the future, it's a good night from me.
Goodbye from me.
Good night from me.
Goodbye all.